Hi, this is Dr. Ron Kaiser, welcoming you to Growing Older with Enthusiasm, our podcast series that helps us learn all the principles of rejuvenaging and how to master and own the second half century of life. As usual, I'm going to be asked questions by Neil Haley, who is kind of the co-host and will hopefully get me to answer questions in a meaningful way that will help you in dealing with today's topic, healthy eating.
And that's another major thing in winning in overtime. And more I think about this, it's just really such an important thing that we don't educate people in school about. We look at kids, hey, healthy eating is important, but we don't teach them it's important for later in life. So how you take care of your body in your 20s, 30s, and 40s relates a lot to what your body's going to deal with in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and above. And healthy eating is something we really don't have what that real setup is because women and men eat differently and they don't always make the right choices.
Well, and I think most of us grew up at a time when what constituted healthy eating was different than what we've learned from science over time. The ideal meal was red meat, potatoes, things of that nature. And, we weren't conscious about some of the things that could do harm to our body. And the reality is that, eating is one of the real pleasures of life. So I think when we talk about eating, we have to, make it fun, make it enjoyable, but make it healthy at the same time.
Definitely. All right. So what do you consider healthy eating to win in overtime?
All right. First of all, I think we start with the term. There are a million diets out there that are called diets. And I think so many people have tried diets and not been successful in maintaining them that I think diets have gotten a bad name. I think someday they may change the term, but right now the term that's used is diet, but I prefer healthy eating. I think there are two general principles to keep in mind. One is that it's a positive experience. So make sure that you treat it that way. It's just like so many other things that are good for you. If you're not used to being social, uh, going into a room with other people may be uncomfortable. But if you attain a comfort level, that's a really enjoyable experience to have that human connection when you go places. Same thing with exercise, same thing with nourishing your mind through reading and so on. So keep in mind, we're talking about positive kind of thing. The second thing, and I know I had an issue with my editor when I was doing my book, Rejuvenating the Art and Science of Growing Older with Enthusiasm. I wanted to put healthy eating first, but he said it would scare people off. People have tried, they found it difficult. I think that a key principle is to recognize healthy eating can be pretty easy because it's not dependent on anybody else. You're the one who determines what you put in your body. So, like so many other things, if you bring that mindset to the situation, you're way ahead of the game. If you'd like, I could go through some of the general principles that I think people should keep in
Yeah,
mind.
let's just jump on that. Let's go.
Okay, first of all, let's to follow up this last point, don't overthink about what can go wrong. Don't build in, cheat meals or things of that nature. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm only going to smoke on weekends, or I'm only going to get drunk one night a week, or something like that. If you're thinking in those ways, you're not becoming a former smoker or somebody who isn't abusing alcohol or whatever it may be. So, we'll get those opportunities to make some determinations. If I go to somebody's home and I know they're a great cook and we're going to be eating there, I may skip my afternoon snack. But you don't build it into your lifestyle. At least I don't believe you should. And I think that there are maybe four general ideas to keep in mind, particularly for those of us in the older age ranges, where this becomes not only good for your health, good for your enjoyment, but also a longevity enhancer. First of all that we know from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, all we know from science, encourages eating plenty of vegetables and fruits. The general guideline is to have half your plate devoted to vegetables and fruits. Eat at least 3 or 4 helpings of vegetables a day, 2 or 3 helpings of fruit. Because of the sugar content in fruit, even though it's natural sugar, we want to favor vegetables more of the time. It's pretty hard to even put on to eat enough vegetables to put on weight, in such a way. So it's really important, find creative ways to incorporate it into every meal, or as I do sometimes, make vegetables, a big salad, and so on, the center of the meal, which picks up most of my portions during the day, although I add to them. So fruits and vegetables, important part and the basis for healthy eating. Second thing, people forget, being hydrated is important. Drinking plenty of water throughout the day. I know that for some people, they're more concerned about how much they're going to have to pee it out or whatever it may be. But the danger of being dehydrated is very real in terms of other disorders. It increases your fall risk. If you're not adequately hydrated, one of the simplest and least expensive ways that you can do healthy eating. The third principle is to stay away from the bad stuff as much as possible. We know that we eat too much sugar as a population. Refined sugar is not good for you. Refined white flour isn't. Saturated fats and trans fats are not good for you. There are healthy fats. Olive oil is certainly one of the healthier ones. Avocados have taken on a favored place now among people who are concerned about this thing. And avoiding heavily processed foods. And some foods you don't necessarily think of as being unhealthy could be unhealthy. Look at the number of ingredients on your package of cereal. It's not just things like potato chips or stuff like that, but some things we've thought about that are healthy and that we need to be selective about in terms of, how many ingredients there are. The fewer the number of ingredients in general, the better off you are and the healthier you're going to be. A tomato has one ingredient, a banana has one ingredient, an egg has one ingredient, a piece of chicken or a piece of fish has one ingredient. Not everything can be managed quite that way, but to the extent that you eat as many foods with one ingredient in a balanced way, can be helpful. There are a lot of other, general strategies that you can utilize. Just the notion of when you go to a market in general, if you shop around the periphery, that's where a lot of the healthy things are, as opposed to the processed things in the middle of the market. The kind of final general principle, and I'll be ready to take any other questions you might have, is that healthy eating in isolation isn't a whole story. Just like if all you do is exercise and you eat, crap, that offsets the exercise. If you don't sleep sufficiently, uh, you know, so healthy eating is part of an overall general plan. And as I said, I think it's easy because almost everybody enjoys eating. It's a matter of, in
No
some
doubt. Yeah.
cases, almost in some cases, kind of reordering your priorities in that regard.
And you can tell how you feel after you eat certain things. If you eat the wrong things, you can feel how you feel, especially maybe the day after. How's your stomach feeling? All these different things. I go with mostly a gluten-free diet, and I'm not allergic, but gluten-free is much better for the digestive system. And then it makes you not want to always have breads either, because you can't find gluten-free everywhere. So you're always going to a salad or different things. But it's so important to really look at your body and feel how you feel after you eat something. If you stuff yourself, you really want to feel stuffed when you have the rest of your day to go through. Do you want to have indigestion at night? All these things is based on your digestion and what you eat and how your clothes fit. That's another important thing. But you're right. If you're not exercising and you're not sleeping well, just because you're eating healthy doesn't it's going to offset.
Yeah, the matter that you mentioned about feeling stuffed, uh, if you go to some of the countries where overweight is not an issue, or some of the areas like the blue zones, um, whereas in the United States, we may finish a meal and say, "Boy, I'm stuffed." The proper term in some countries is, "I'm no longer hungry." Uh, so that's the purpose, is to not be hungry, as opposed to seeing how much you can put down there. Some people have suggested, eating until you're 80% full. It's not a concept I can totally, relate to. My mind doesn't think in those terms, but it works for a lot of people and something to kind of keep in mind. Um,
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting, the process. And sometimes when we have a really bad meal, we'll say, really, should we have this? Should we have this double pizza, with all these toppings, or go through the McDonald's, God forbid, or Wendy's or Burger King, pick the value dollar menu and think we're going to feel good the next day? The case is not.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it it's difficult for some people, particularly older people on a fixed income, because some of the processed food places do offer these incentives to buy things that are inexpensive, as opposed when compared to some of the healthier options. But it does suggest that if you are a careful shopper, you don't, and if you ideally have access to sources of healthy food, you're not in living in a food desert, which unfortunately some people do. Uh, you can eat quite healthy without breaking the bank. Um, you mentioned one thing that I want to come back to, that I don't want people to get hung up on. Um, what other people are, what works for other people. In other words, I think gluten-free is works for a lot of people. By the same token, if you're not allergic, you know, multi-grain is better than certainly than processed white flour based bread. Uh, if it's not mixed in with too many other kinds of things. Um, the nature, although I don't like the term diet, but there have been some that have been found to be healthier than others, and probably in general, the Mediterranean diet, which is focused on fruits, vegetables, fish, healthy oils, limited amounts of grain, limited amounts of dairy. Uh, and you know, all these things can be modified in some way, tends to be one of the ones that is highly recommended and is consistent with other with other plans that promote healthy eating. But don't lose sight of the fact eating should be an enjoyment. If you just keep in mind what's bad for you, what's good for you, how do you make and build in choices creatively for what is good for you? When you eat in restaurants, how can you choose things that are good for you? Um, you know, emphasize what's good for you. Emphasize the enjoyment rather than overthinking the negative, because, you know, unfortunately, a byproduct of the obesity epidemic is eating has gotten a bad name, bad rap, and shouldn't really be that way.
All right. Best place people can find information on you and win in overtime. Where can they go?
Okay, well, first of all, uh, visit my websites, the both the mental health gym and drronkaiser.com. Uh, the winning in overtime course will really be based upon some of the things that we're covering in this series of podcasts. So first of all, listen to all the podcasts, check back with me if you're interested in more intense work, either in a course or on an individual basis. And you know what I keep coming back to in several of these episodes is to mention the fact that, you know, we have the science to ensure that some of us are going to live for decades beyond what a normal retirement age is. Don't approach that passively. Actively take care to enhance your longevity, and eating healthy is one of the great ways that you can do it.
All right. That was growing older with enthusiasm. Thanks again for everyone tuning in. Take care.
You